started the episode early there. Hello and welcome to another episode of CRT Sound System. We're doing, for episode 66, we've got Mario Party 1 through 3. And here, as always, is Reese. Reese, how are you?
Incredible. Health is high. I'm strong. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not. I'm about the same, I suppose. Let's say. I think it's fair to say
Yeah, exactly.
both of us are in fact quite sick, but we're pushing through.
Well,
And
the pod is above all.
yeah,
Before health, before
yeah,
family,
just
before country.
dragging ourselves to the
well,
podcasting cave.
well, not before country because we are an Irish podcast. So it's like saying Ireland.
Podcast no borders.
Exactly.
And we've got a guest with us returning from the Doom episode is TheMessenger. Alex, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
That's good to hear. So yeah, we've decided that you're going to be the one pulling us through the podcast this week.
I know it's a little ironic because I tend to be a little more laid back, maybe on the quieter side, but I am up for the challenge though of really bringing the energy.
Excellent, yeah.
Bringing the energy and just also all the information about Mario Party.
Yeah.
Mario Party is one of those memes that stokes throughout gaming, but I don't know if I played a game of Mario Party in 15 years, so I'm excited to have some context because these bang much harder than I remember, and like considering the composers, it's understandable, but still.
Yeah, so I suppose if you want to give us a quick rundown on Mario Party for anyone who happens to not really know what Mario Party is somehow. I feel like Mario Party's been around for so long at this stage, it's hard to avoid it, but let's assume that somebody doesn't know what Mario Party is.
I think the best way that I could describe it is that Mario Party is a long-running party series where you and three others, you play a board game-like game, just going around gathering up coins, and the main objective is to get stars, and at the end of every turn, you play a mini game.
I think that's
lots of chaotic stuff.
Yeah, I think from what I've seen of other people playing it, it gets really chaotic. It's as I say, I've mentioned it, but I've never really gotten into the series outside of just trying one or two rounds, probably 20 years ago on the GameCube one, because I did have a couple of friends who were really into it, but. Just the series never super appealed to me. But when you first mentioned it, I was like, okay, I'll look into the series for the music. And then I saw the name Yasunori Mitsuda, and I was immediately like, yeah, absolutely. Always happy to have an opportunity to talk about Yasunori Mitsuda, because he did the first game. But yeah, like I played a bit of the game, the first three games then today and yesterday and just during the week. On the Nintendo Switch Online. It's handy that all three of them are up there, so I was able to just give them a quick little go. And it's definitely one of those series where like there's a lot of simplicity to it. It's basically just a board game. But I think if you had a few friends together and everybody was getting really into it, I think things could get quite hectic with it.
Yeah, I think it's fodder for a lot of capital C content as well. Like I know Giant Bomb did a series where they played through every single one and they would like dress up. And Dan Reichert was super into it and would always want each one, and they were just, this is bullshit, I hate this. Smosh does one where they have some like house rules where it's like you switch players during the mini game. You have to go towards the star, and the goal is to not win Mario Party. If you win Mario Party, you gotta wear the dog collar, not like the puppy girl dog collar, but those those cones when your dog comes home from
The
surgery.
cone of shame. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, the
okay.
cone of shame. And I've been watching a lot of Northern Lion lately, and Northern Lion and his cohort of 40-year-olds just play it regular. And I gotta say, Mario Party gets a lot of hate, but I kind of love it as a board game for children. You know, it's just like, is Mario Party any more fair than Monopoly? I would say not. Maybe not, but it's at least has comeback mechanics, so you're not just watching this person you didn't even want to play a board game with anyway just buy up all the property and absolutely like crush you and send you into destitution. And it's also for children, you know. They're not going to really understand the mechanics and are somehow less likely to get upset than an adult, I'd think, just because the, you know, smaller kids that I think this is made for, at least was originally made for. I think now Nintendo has kind of caught wise, but I'm a Mario Party defender. I think it's something that in my memories of the games I did play, it was less like, oh, this is bullshit, and more just like, oh, I still have a chance even though I lost. I got really unlucky. I don't know.
I feel as though with the games, I mean, it has like a real good blend of skill and luck. I think the things that you can actually control with, I guess, with the strategy aspect of it, I mean, you could really turn things into your favor with just the right move. But there's also a good amount of luck where maybe a dice roll just went your way and then something big happens and all of a sudden you're going from last place to first place.
Yeah. I do think that's something that Nintendo tried to do with like a lot of their multiplayer games, like obviously like things like the Blue Shell and Mario Kart, or even just like items and stuff in the Smash Brothers games. Like they, you know, they always try and sort of make it so that there's it's not going to be just one person just running away with the game every time. At least assuming that there's no like just people haven't gone in and just turned off all the fun options, which obviously does happen as well. But like,
Smash.
Yeah, definitely with Smash Brothers. But like, but you know, like that, and like you said, Alex, like I think there is a certain amount of skill in sort of managing luck, and sort of how you react to a bad dice roll or a good dice roll is almost as important as the dice roll itself. Like you can turn a bad situation into a good one, and if you are familiar enough with the game to make it work. And I think that's something that people overlook a lot of the time when they look at luck based stuff, especially with these sort of like with stuff that like this. You know, it's sort of it's easy for people to sort of feel hard done by when something didn't go their way, rather than just trying to get through it and actually, you know, make it work for them.
Yeah, I think it rewards thinking ahead in your turns, because you do get options, you know, especially at like the item shops, and you know you can choose which direction to go. And the star, once somebody gets the star, it appears randomly, but you're always choosing, you know, which path can I go down, left or right. And if you can think ahead, where it's like, well, there's more slots for the star to drop onto the left, you know, if I go that way because Yoshi's about to grab a star, you know, things could go my way, that sort of stuff. And I think it's just sort of like, you know, there are no guarantees, but I think it does have an impact, while still having that, you know, that chaotic factor that I would call fun. You know, there's no blue turtle shell in Call of Duty, Black Ops, and I think that they people who play it are less happier for it.
Yeah, that's yeah, especially like, you know, like that. There's no in your Call of Duties, you get your kill streaks and whatever, so it tends to reward people who are already good at the game, more than people who are sort of struggling behind as well. And you know, there's obviously a place for that in games, but I think for stuff like this, it's always nice that that Nintendo sort of always tries to make it so that everybody um, can sort of compete and like that, like you said, Reese, that you're not just sort of watching somebody else play the game while you sit there waiting for your turn.
Yeah.
And I suppose part of that, as well as what you mentioned, Alex, is the way the mini games sort of at the end of each turn there's a mini game. So I wasn't really I didn't play long enough to figure it out. So there's like what, 60 or something per game? Is that usually how it works,
Roughly?
or does it vary? Yeah. And like, do they manage to actually have different games in each of them, or do they tend to carry over the same games through the different game series?
From the first to the second game, there were quite a handful of carryover games with some refinement, but for the most part, it's original stuff game to game.
Yeah.
Especially as it became established as a series, they did that they did that more and more, rather, just to they had more and more original games, because it would not feel good to have to play a repeat. And when, if you're a Mario Party fan, you've played this Snowball Snuggles to death in Mario Party 4. If you bring it back to 5, people are gonna riot.
Yeah, I suppose like that. It's between from like one game to the next one. Yeah, you might want to mix it up, but then the Switch ones tend to be sort of like mixes of all the ones from the previous games, are they? That was my understanding for Jamboree, certainly.
Well, mainly Mario Party Superstars. I mean, that game was like a celebration of the entire series. They brought back boards from, well, the Nintendo 64 era, but also just mini games from throughout the entire series. Though they did, for Jamboree, bring back a couple boards and also a few mini games.
Okay, I didn't realize that the actual boards themselves would repeat as well. That makes a bit of sense too. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like kind of a one-off idea for Superstars, but I was surprised that they kind of did that again a little bit for Jamboree.
No, it's I suppose it makes sense. Like I didn't think about the boards themselves as being sort of iconic or specific to a game, but I can definitely see that. Yeah. But yeah, as far as the music goes, so the first game, as I mentioned already, was done by Yasunori Mitsuda, who we've actually only covered one of his games previously, which was Chrono Cross. But he's definitely one of the big composers for me personally. Like back when I was first getting into video game music, his soundtracks are the ones that I was listening to a lot. And I found out today, in fact, that this is the first soundtrack he did as a freelancer. He'd previously sort of been working mostly for Square, and then went freelance after Xenogears, and this was the one that he did afterwards. And it's an interesting sort of mix of like he's trying to sort of match the stylistic, the sort of the Nintendo house style, I suppose you could call it. But there's definitely bits during all the tracks there where you can really hear his a lot of his little I don't know what you'd call them, idiosyncrasies coming through, little sort of arpeggiations and little orchestral bits and stuff that are very identifiable to his style. But yeah, I think we will jump into the first block of tracks anyway. So these are all from the first game. And again, all composed by Yasunori Mitsuda. So we have Playing the Game, Mushroom Bank Theme, Option House Theme, Mushroom Shop Theme, Bowser's Theme, and then Everyone's a Superstar.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a good mix there, I think, of sort of the classic themes that he's rearranged, plus some of his own stuff, and that last track there, I really love that one a lot. I actually ended up putting that into one of my regular rotation playlists. Just it's a nice little tune, and yeah,
Oh
like
wow.
yeah, it's really really good. Like I mentioned during the break, the string sections on it just would not sound out of place on the Xenogears soundtrack, and yeah, that whole soundtrack is impeccable. So that is the highest possible praise I can give it, really. But yeah, like again, like I just like how he incorporates all the classic Mario themes. You've got the ground theme, the underground theme, and everything, and then he's just got sort of his own stuff incorporated into it as well.
Yeah, it's really great, and I think too is that what is we've heard, I imagine, if you're anything like me, so many covers or just sort of like rearrangements of the Mario music.
Mm,
Just anybody doing any kind of music um, usually had, especially back in the day when there was been more Mario fever. It was not that it's not popular now, but it used to be like so ubiquitous. Was just like I remember the you know in when I was in my childhood, some guy on the bus was just like, "You don't need to know any other game other than Mario. If you know another game, you're a nerd." Like it's, and that was dangerous back then. You would absolutely get not beat up, but a bruise for being a nerd. So it was a dire proclamation. But that's all to say that Mitsuda is working these tracks like they're mithril, really I think expertly incorporating them into the game while making them just totally his own. I was honestly, obviously Mitsuda is great, but I was really shocked how distinctive a voice the Mario Party soundtrack had. Like, it while it has the sort of the music we would all expect and the tone you would want from a jaunty kids board game, it feels like, a whole lot more sort of like a happier Final Fantasy soundtrack in some places, and I don't know. It's really charming and really good.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I guess just to kind of piggyback on all that, I mean, I like to think of it as peanut butter and chocolate, where Yasunori Mitsuda, he's the peanut butter. He's bringing his Yasunori Mitsuda-ness to it. Taking the soundtrack really seriously, and just mixing it in with the chocolate that is I would say the entire Mario franchise. I mean, yes, it does sound like it could fit into something like Chrono Trigger, but it is very much a Mario type of music.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Um, and like, yeah, I think it's probably his only N64 soundtrack as well, which I think is interesting because like most of what I associate with him is sort of stuff on the PlayStation One. And obviously there's Chrono Trigger as well on the Super Nintendo, but like I think the PS1 is sort of where I really started getting into his music. So it's interesting to sort of hear him play with that sound. And I found an interesting quote in an interview, which is very interesting or very, very relevant, I think, to the N64 in that he says that game hardware does come with limitations, but there are no limitations to music. So that's a nice little thought, I think.
I think these tracks could have very easily just been go a lot more of the arrangement route,
Mm,
where not that these some of these aren't arrangements, but just being like, oh, you're on the lava level. What if we did a kind of just got some lava sounds in the underworld theme, and call it a day. They could have done
yeah.
that. That would have the sales would not have suffered one iota. But but he didn't. It is, like I said before, so distinct.
Mhm.
He kind of does it a little bit with some of the tracks in the soundtrack where it's like it's just straight up like, here's a Mario arrangement. I mean, it's pretty fitting for what's going on, but then there are some other tracks where the arrangement is very subtle, and maybe at like a first time listen you don't notice it, but if you just really listen to it, you kind of pick up on some things.
Yeah, there's a couple that it took me a couple of listens for me to realize that he was actually quoting a specific Mario theme, which I think is cool. What were you going to say? Sorry, Reese.
Sorry, I put down my glasses for a second to attend to my sickness, and I was just like, oh goodness, where'd I put them? I don't know, just that I think it speaks to the quality. It's tough to say new things about Nintendo games, right? Like even the esoteric stuff has been played out. Just all of the bits. Oh, isn't Mario? He's eating mushroom. He's tripping. It's just like feels like older than the games themselves at this point. But it does feel like sometimes we have to loop back around and show a little bit of respect to these classic Nintendo soundtracks where massive credit to Nintendo to be able to get this composer and to pull this kind of like jaunty soundtrack out. Just because I don't know, I just feel like the Nintendo these days is a lot more likely to coast on sort of like what they already have, their catalog. And I appreciate them just doing a good job on this. I don't know. My sickness is starting to get to me.
That's all right, yeah. I suppose worth mentioning as well is that at least the first three and probably some of the later ones were developed by Hudson Soft.
I mean, really, that's wonderful. I love Hudson Soft.
Yeah, and I suppose like their pedigree for multiplayer chaos is pretty high, given that they made Bomberman.
God, talk about ended friendships.
And also very, very good jaunty music on those ones as well. I think the later two games, the music was done more in house, and those composers did seem to work on some of the Bomberman soundtracks early on as well. So we'll definitely discuss a couple of those later. But yeah, I think we'll jump into the next block, which is just a few more tracks from Mario Party 1, and then we can maybe talk a bit more about Mario Party 2 and 3. So let me pull up my notes here. We have again, all composed by Yasunori Mitsuda, Jungle Adventure, Engine Room, Rainbow Castle, Eternal Star, Let's Go Lightly, and Saving Courage. one thing I do want to mention, actually, another little piece of info that I got from an interview was he mentioned that he made over 200 pieces of music for this game, and only 60 were actually used in the game itself. Which, like, if you can imagine for somebody doing their first like freelance gig, like that's a huge amount of overperformance.
Yeah.
And like we discussed before on the Chrono Cross episode, like this is a man who put himself into hospital, because he was working too hard on video game music. It doesn't seem like he's learned his lesson, but like, hopefully over the years, he's managed to pare that down and actually, get himself a good balance of work and life.
Yeah. It's very funny to me just to imagine that Mario Party could have just like a $90 box set and just be like all the unreleased tracks.
Yeah.
Did they reuse them, do you know, or is it just sort of like in the Nintendo
There was no
vault?
other information. It was just like it says all but 60 of the 200 pieces created were rejected.
Okay, they're just immediately deleted forever. Got it.
Yeah, it would be nice if he had them, but I'm not sure we'll ever hear them. So something you mentioned actually, Alex, during the break as well, was just about the boards in the first game being more character based, and having different gimmicks. So I just sort of assumed that the boards were more of an aesthetic difference, but is there actually different gimmicks on different boards and stuff like that? How does that actually work generally?
Oh yeah. I think especially with the first game, I guess I wouldn't say that the rules are different, just more of like the star placements is different on a few different boards. I guess like Mario's Rainbow Castle, for an example, the star's always in the same spot, but it's more of a linear type board, and
Okay.
it will actually switch back and forth between having it be Toad or Bowser, where you want to get the Toad, but sometimes it'll just be Bowser that's there and you don't want to go to him because he'll try to screw you over.
Okay, so does Bowser appear on every map? Because I did run into him in one of them, and he was like, "You can give me 20 coins, or sometimes you might get 10,000 coins off him." But it was just like it was just completely random.
I think he never picks that. I think there's there's some troll options.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I don't think it ever lands on that in the first game, but in the rest of the series, like that option still pops up and it will land on it, but
Okay.
he'll just be like, he's just like, nope, and he runs off.
That's even better.
Bowser.
I guess to answer your question though, Tom, yeah, he does pop up in every board. And that what's kind of weird though too, with the first game is that yeah, there are Bowser spaces that you can land on, but he is also just physically on the board.
I was a bit confused by that too. I was like, why is he down in this weird tunnel that I found myself in, but also on the board? And does he ever become playable in later games, or is he always just a villain?
He's actually playable in Super Mario Party and Super Mario Party Jamboree.
Okay. And does that affect the stages that he's on, or is he just not on stages in those games?
What's kind of weird, actually, what's weird about those two games, for Super Mario Party, they just kind of fill the Bowser role to Kamek.
Oh,
but
okay.
in Jamboree, Kamek kind of just comes up with what is known as an imposter Bowser.
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
Where it's Bowser, but it's not Bowser.
Yeah.
And even if you're playing as Bowser, he still screws you over.
I think if Bowser's not being played, it's still the imposter Bowser. At least in the Bowser stage, that's doing doing all of Bowser's machinations.
Oh,
Funny.
the Bowser spaces do pop up on every board. So
It seems like the structure is, each board has a difficulty rating, and sort of like if you're playing in the early ones, difficulty rating 1, it's the Mario Party you kind of know and have emotions about, where you're just kind of like, maybe there's a couple of choices where to go, a soft gimmick, but nothing special. And then when you get to the higher difficulty boards, then they start really switching things up on you. Like the Eternal Star one has a whole bunch of small Bowsers, not small Bowsers, his children, around, and you have to play dice against them, stuff like that. The Magma Mountain has you sort of like climbing the mountain to the top. And so it can vary, but that's sort of the vibe for it. And yeah, there are Bowser spaces everywhere, but there can be more or less threats considered depending on the difficulty.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. So yeah, we'll move on to the second game. So this game, it feels like it came out really soon after the first, like in a really weird way. Because what was it? Yeah, 1998 was Mario Party, then 1999 was Mario Party 2. Is this a significantly different game, or is it just one of the cases where they were like, okay, we've just refined a few things, here's a bunch of extra shit, but there's nothing that different about it?
what's kind of weird about Mario Party 2 is that in some ways they make some pretty significant changes.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it is the game that introduced items to the series. There weren't
Okay.
items in the first game. And I did say earlier that they did bring back a handful of mini games from the first game with some refinements.
Yeah. It's a bit of a mix of like being a sequel and just being an improved version of the first game.
I guess in some ways, I mean, you could think of like every game in the series to be more of like an expansion of what came before, but
Yeah, well, it's just, I suppose, the reason I ask is I sort of had a look at some reviews, and reviews at the time were like, didn't give it as high a score as the first one because they thought it was the same game. And that's a thing that reviews really at the time, in the 90s, or like if a game was not significantly different from its previous game in the series, they would just get marked down. I remember like Sonic 2 getting low scores because it wasn't different enough from Sonic 1, despite being a much better game. So I was just curious if that was just the weird reviewer bias at the time, or if there's more to it.
yeah, that sounds about right. And in retrospect, Mario Party 2 is considered to be the best game
Okay.
in the series, even though it's personally not my favorite, but it is up there as one of my
Yeah.
favorites.
Yeah, and I suppose with 20 or 25 years of games since then, like if you're able to look back outside of the context of like, we just got one of these last year, it's probably easier to look at it on its own and see it for what it is. Yeah.
It's definitely a game that I think aged like fine wine.
Maybe you can confirm or deny this, Alex, but the it seems like the biggest jumps were when they released a Mario Party for a new console generation. Um, it seems like the biggest leap early on was from 3 to 4, just because the GameCube could do more, and that established kind of more tropes. And then they would release it. They released however many for GameCube, and it kind of gets more expansive with each console, because it's Mario Party. I think 1 through 3 especially, it can feel samey, I think, from a outsider's perspective, at least from my perspective, just because the N64 does have some very sort of like, early 3D drawbacks, let's say. Where it's just like, I was watching gameplay of 3 and I was just like, wow, the resolution on this board is crazy low. Like, it's hard to imagine that being acceptable even in that day and age, but it was sort of like, it's fine because it's a board game and it's the N64 and it's Mario, and it doesn't, and I'm not saying it looks bad, but there's a something you could perceive as lack of polish that is sort of like consistent between 1 through 3. And so I think as those went on, I think it would be easy to ding them. But 2, to jump on the 2, what I love most about 2 is that there is a world called Horrorland or board. Like, I feel like you don't get spoopy content actually calling themselves horror ever. And obviously it's just like, oh, there are boos and all that shit, and there's some spiders on the board. Just classic sort of like safe, creepy imagery, but it's I just like that it's called Horrorland all the same, and they don't repeat that, but I love it.
Yeah, I think the looking at the list, they're all sort of themed lands rather than in the first game, which I suppose are more character based. Because even like the first track we have in the next block is Western Land, and there's other ones. So yeah, I suppose they're sort of going with your sort of classic Mario level state, like your classic Mario stages of having the being sort of different themes. As opposed to just being based on the characters.
Yeah, it's genre, the different genres of Mario levels that one could have, and not necessarily referencing Mario as much, but just like it's the levels are Pirate Land, Western Land, Space Land, Mystery Land, Horror Land, and then Bowser Land, and so Bowser Land is sort of like the only more focused one, although that's sort of like its own vibe, the lava vibe. But it's I think
Bowser
it's a
and
strong
lava are
theme.
synonymous, I think, regardless.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and the thing that's really cool about the board theming too is that alongside the different themes for the boards, the characters actually dress up for the boards.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
So, like Western Land, for an example, everyone's dressed up like cowboys. In Pirate Land, they're pirates. And they never did that again for the rest of the series. Like, it was just a one-off thing that they did for Mario Party 2, and I thought it was really cool.
That is cool. I suppose it's a lot of work to do all that for for just one stage or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, that is unfortunate. But yeah, we'll jump into the first, or this block of Mario Party 2 tracks. So the composers for this game, as I mentioned, they sort of went back in house with the Hudson composers for these. So we have Hironao Yamamoto, sorry, Shohei Bando, and Kazuhiko Sawaguchi. I don't have any specific composers for specific tracks. It's just all three of them are credited for all of the soundtrack. And as I mentioned, they're sort of all Hudson employees of various types. So most of them have credits on Bomberman games. And so yeah, Hironao Yamamoto has Bomberman, Tengai Makyo, and then the Mario Party 3 soundtrack. The Mario Party 2. And then later, he was a programmer on Mario Party 3's soundtrack, but not a composer. And same with Shohei Bando. The person that has the most credits outside of like Hudson Games is Kazuhiko Sawaguchi. He's got a bunch of stuff. It's actually mostly anime. Like there's like Sakura Wars, Ah My Goddess, One Piece, a bunch of different stuff. But the most interesting one jumping out to me when I look at it there is the El Shaddai Ascension of the Metatron soundtrack. Which, if anybody hasn't heard that soundtrack, it's really unknown and absolutely fantastic. It's even on Spotify though. It's definitely worth checking that soundtrack out, I would say.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Right, so we'll jump into that block of tracks then. From Mario Party 2, we have Western Land, Space Land, That's All of It, The Blue Skies Yonder, Horrorland, Rules Land, and last track is Mini Game Stadium. One thing I always enjoy when I don't do enough research on something before, and then I start reading about it in the middle of the podcast, I get to learn some fun stuff. But I just read about the fucking plot of this game, so I didn't fully pay attention to it at this when I booted up the game earlier in the week. But just the Mario and his friends create a world built from their dreams and then get into a debate over who the new world should be named after, which is an incredible way to start a video game, frankly. And yeah, we talked about it a bit, but the fact that this game, one of the changes they did make to the mini games was not having games that rotate the control stick, because there were some lawsuits and a settlement involving Nintendo sending out gloves to people so that they could play the games without ruining the palms of their hands.
That was real though. That brought back such a deep core memory of spinning the. I would use the palm of my hand to spin it, but that didn't make it hurt less. That just protected one of my digits, the most valuable one. Some have said, they would. I wonder. Do you know when they got rid of the spin mini games, Messenger?
Pretty much just right after the first game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they were leaning more towards button mashers after that point. So instead of just having to rotate the stick around 100 billion times, it's just like, oh, just press the A button like 500 times, or do like a back and forth, like do like A B A B A B A B kind of deal.
Just different ways to injure yourself. So, do you know anybody who ever had these gloves? Because I'm very curious about them, because they were described as similar to weightlifting gloves with padded palms, and yeah, I'm really curious to see what those are like. I bet they go if they go up on eBay, they're probably quite expensive.
Not that I know of. I don't know.
They can't have been that special. I mean, I feel like for a lawsuit, Nintendo's not going to put, Princess Peach on them. They probably were just like, just black, like you would get for anything else where you're trying to protect your hands.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too. They were probably like cheapo gloves, and that probably maybe like just a slight handful of people probably like actually took advantage of that lawsuit.
Yeah. I managed to find somebody who found some, and yeah, they look like they're just like these were probably purchased in bulk from a sports goods store. Yeah, they're not even branded Nintendo or anything like that. I was just hoping they maybe did something a bit more bespoke for us. Because we were talking as well about the having to do the same with the Wii. Shortly after that came out, where they had to send out, you could apply to have them send you some of the a big plastic condom for your Wii remote.
I'm actually just now looking at that link that you sent. They kind of look like the Power Glove, kind of.
A little bit, yeah. Actually, yeah, they're as I say, they look like they're just a standard glove, or a standard like sports glove. So yeah, I was curious about them once I was reminded. Then I had to go looking. But yeah, so the next game then obviously is Mario Party 3, and like Mario Party 2, I think it got reviewed poorly for maybe not being different enough to the previous game. Would you say that's a fair assessment of Mario Party 3, or how would you feel about Mario Party 3, Alex?
I think just like Mario Party 2, like just in retrospect, I I mean people view Mario Party 3 as a really fantastic game, one of the best in the series. And for me, it is my personal favorite in the
Oh,
entire
okay,
series.
interesting. Okay, what
What
sort
do the
of?
earlier ones have that the or three specifically have that the later ones don't? Not that
Hmm,
that's surprising or anything. I'm just curious.
I think it's a little tough for me to say that even though it does kind of seem like a lot of the games are just copied and paste. I think it's
hmm,
just some of the little things just gives it a little bit of a unique flavor. And I think with Mario Party 3, it's just I think they were starting to like kind of get a good feel for coming up with mini games,
hmm,
having more original ideas. They kind of expanded on the item system a little
hmm.
more. 'Cause in Mario Party 2, you can only carry one item at a time, and with 3, they expanded it to 3 items, introduced a lot of crazy items like I guess like the reverse shroom, for an example. You could use it on yourself or another player, and they would actually go backwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it says here 70 all new mini games on it, so there was like it was a completely new sort of experience in that regard, at least. Even though I suppose the base gameplay is still sort of just a board game. But I suppose that's not really the main draw. I think for a lot of people, I imagine it's just the chaos of the mini games is where people want it.
My understanding is that they sometimes it's not like there weren't a lot of new minigames, but I feel like all new has a they really stretch the definition sometimes.
Okay.
Whereas it's like there's a refresh of an idea, and
Hmm.
maybe it takes place in a cloud zone instead of a water zone.
Oh, okay.
Um, but it's still credit where credit is due.
Yeah. That's fair enough. And notably, the only of the three soundtracks to get a an official CD release, which I thought was quite interesting. When I was first looking it up, I was like, surely the first game at least would have its own CD soundtrack. But no, it's just this third game. Um, and yeah, the music is again done in house with Hudson. Is by Ichiro Shimakura, um, who like the other people is looks like he's still around. He's still part of ND Cube, who make the current Mario Party games. Now there's no specific credits listed on it, but I imagine he's probably still involved if he's still there with the Mario Party series.
I want to say he took on more of a director type of
Mm,
role, music wise.
yeah.
Um, and actually, I will say, I think he's a pretty underrated composer.
Yeah, no. Looking here, like he's on the Star Soldier soundtrack. He's Elemental Gimmick Gear, and like I did enjoy this soundtrack a lot while I was listening to it. Like, there's definitely has some stuff that I think is worth looking into. I hadn't gotten around to looking at it, but I did like the look of Master of Epic, which is a very interesting looking series for the I think there's Saturn games, I think, if I remember rightly. Um, another one of those weird sort of Saturn games that never came over here. Yeah, so we'll jump into the last block of tracks in any case. So from Mario Party 3, again, all composed by Ichiro Shimakura. We have Waluigi's Island, Good Luck, On Your Toes, Chilly Waters, Fighting Spirit, Genie's Theme, Stardust Battle, The Adventure Begins, and Spiny Desert. You were mentioning there just about how going ahead, um, they've really sort of this Mario Party 3 really defined the sound of the series from here on out. But I would say in fairness that like to both Ichiro Shimakura and to Yasunori Mitsuda, they both do such a good job of sort of integrating little Mario motifs and stuff into their own sound. Because like even you could hear that in a lot of tracks there, especially the one that really jumped out to me, and I hadn't noticed it previously when listening, was the Stardust battle, which has an interesting interpolation of the Bowser boss theme from Mario World. It just took me a while to even spot that it was there, but it's there sort of in the main riff, and like again like that, just sort of having his own sound. As distinct from the previous games, but also still drawing from the original compositions by Koji Kondo as well, where he can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I fear my sickness is getting. I'm kind of depleted.
Nah, it's all right. Yeah. I'd say same myself. I can feel my voice going at times, or I'm trying to try not to overwork.
Yeah. I just feel my brain unspooling. Like it's defragmenting as we speak. The pores in my brain are opening up, and everything is entering the blood-brain barrier. So, I think it's interesting a game like Mario Party finding its voice, because it's hard. It's hard for me to put my finger on it. But I do agree that it's sort of like it took them a little bit for them to find out what actually is Mario Party, rather than just like Mario and Waluigi wandering around a board.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting to see, it refined into Super Mario Jamboree, which I've been watching Northern Lion play a ton of, because that's just the multiplayer game du jour. While he goofs off, and it's very polished at this point, to the where it's just like I heard Northern Lion talking about just being like, how do you not buy the new Mario Party? It's Mario Party. And he goes, well, the reason you don't buy it is because it's $69.99 for Mario Party, but and it was something, some kind of insane markup in Canada.
Okay.
But still. So yeah, I appreciate it, and I definitely enjoyed having my attention turned towards these. I'm definitely I've saved a couple of the soundtracks on my various YouTube playlists. I
Yeah.
think definitely gonna be returning to them just for various sort of the incredibly engaging, fun, but also very listenable tracks for when I'm walking or whatever.
Hmm.
That's really awesome. Like that actually makes me feel really happy to hear that.
Well, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, like I'm definitely going to start maybe listening to some of the later games in the series now, just to sort of see where it can go with it. As we discussed during the breaks, but you did an episode last October, I think, or so. Was it just the Mario Party Jamboree soundtrack, or did you have sort of a mix of stuff on it? I can't remember.
No, it was just a focus on Super Mario Party Jamboree.
You mentioned the one of the Yasunori Mitsuda tracks was repeated, but yeah, I guess it's an arrangement of that rather than that. Yeah. So, but yeah, if you like this music, go back to to Alex's show, VGM Journey. I think yeah. Episode 156. Yeah, there we have it. That's the Super Mario Party Jamboree, and that's a really fun episode. It's a really fun soundtrack. I really enjoyed listening to it. And like, 'cause it was around the time you first mentioned to me that you wanted to do the Mario Party stuff that you released that episode. So I guess you had Mario Party on the brain at the time.
Yeah, this has been an interesting episode too, because it's the first time we've swerved into Nintendo proper, really.
Mm,
Like it's certainly we've had Nintendo games, Nintendo soundtracks, but you know this is the first time we've done, like, we haven't done any Zelda. I don't think we've done any like a Kirby episode, stuff like that. So
yeah.
I think this is quite wonderful for the pod to kind of pick this one out, because I think this is really would not be the first one you'd think
Mm,
to go after, at least in my opinion.
yeah, I think that's fair to say.
So I'm really glad that you brought this to us, Alex, because we finally dipped our toe into the Nintendo waters, but I think in an appropriate way, where we're not just like, well, let's listen to the Zelda, uh, opening or whatever. Which is not a knock on the Zelda opening. I could put the NES Zelda opening up now on loop and just stare slack jawed for like 45 minutes. It's just to say, like, it feels special rather than just being like, well, we're doing this Mario Brothers 3 today, or whatever.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good way to sort of talk about Mario music without, as I say, just uh, analyzing the ground theme for the 50th time. Like,
What's the name of the band that uh what's his name stole all of the Mario music from? Like, didn't really steal, but you listen to it, you're like, this is very Mario-esque.
there's a couple. There's T Square is one of them. One of the ones that he got, and I can't remember the name of the other track. But yeah, if you listen to that, it's hold on, I definitely have a note of that here. So give me 1 second.
You can't just Google T-Square. Need a little bit
Well,
more.
the other famous stolen T Square track was the Guile theme as well. So that's probably the one that comes up first.
Oh, okay.
No, I thought I had a note of it here in my little tracker. I have a VGM appropriation tab in the spreadsheet that I use to keep track of what episodes I want to do, and there's a bunch of stuff in there, but I guess I didn't note that one, unfortunately. So I'll have to track that down later. But yeah, you can. I'll probably put a link to it in the show notes, in fact. But there's a song that the Underground theme just basically rips off straight off. Like it's just that soon that track. And
So yeah,
I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just that's what it is.
it's funny to think that that Nintendo music fans are actually fans of jazz fusion.
I mean, if you like video game music, there's a good chance that you probably really would be into Japanese jazz fusion from the late 70s, because a lot of them
absolutely.
were.
But I feel too is
They
that jazz is one of those knee jerk meme things
Yeah.
that people do riffs of, and you're like, no, let's you if you like Mario, the Mario song, you like jazz fusion, idiot. It already won. It's like Osmandius is just be like, you've been listening to
Fusion
jazz
for the last
fusion for the
35
past
minutes.
15 minutes.
But yeah, we'll finish up for the night anyway, I reckon, because it's getting a bit late for both of us. So yeah, thank you again so much, Alex, for joining us. It was really fun to have you on.
Absolutely, Alex. I really appreciate. Just want to jump in and say I really appreciate you being patient with us during this trying time. We've been pretty unspooled this whole recording. You've been very patient. Thank you.
Absolutely,
thank you for your time. It was wonderful.
Yeah. So yeah, if you want to plug your podcast or anything else that you've got going on, Alex, go ahead.
Well, first, I just want to say thank you guys for having me on the show. It was a blast.
Wonderful.
I mean, I definitely love talking about Mario Party whenever I can. And for any plugs and stuff, I mean, obviously, I gotta talk about my video game music podcast, a VGM Journey, where just pretty similar to you guys, just play some pretty awesome video game music and talk about it. I don't really do too many themed episodes. It's just more of a random, just hodgepodge of different stuff. But every once in a while, I'll just do a focus on something.
Yeah, it seems a bit more vibes based, where it's just sort of like here's 25 great tracks from the messenger to you. That's the message. And it's a good it's a good separation for if you want more directed, focused. This is every F-Zero song ever episodes. That's us. But if you want the vibes, go to VTM Journey.
And I'll include links to it in the show notes as well. Like
absolutely.
it's a good one. I like to listen to it. It's not one of my ones that are weekly, but I like to build up a nice little run of it and then like listen to 3 or 4 in a row. That's the way I like to listen to it, just because you get a nice blast of music that way. Because unlike us, you don't tend to go on for like 2 hours. I think your sort of maximum episode is about an hour long.
Yeah.
I think that's if that's like really one. Oh, and I forgot about your Secret Santa
That's
episodes, which I think are really fun.
I love doing those every year. Honestly, it's probably like the highlight of my year. Every year is doing the Secret Santas.
Yeah, so explain to the listeners what the Secret Santa episodes are. I think it's a fun little concept.
So pretty much, I just have a handful of my listeners participate, and they are given another listener. They got to pick a track for them, just kind of based off of either their personality or their likes, and yeah, we do like a big gift exchange of sorts on the show. I mean, you have no idea who's getting you a gift until that episode comes out, and it seems like a lot of people they really bring their A game for this. The track list has always just been fire every single year.
Hell yeah.
There's some good ones on it this year, definitely. But yeah, Reese, if you want to plug what you got going on at the moment, now's the time.
You know what I would like to plug today, Tom? Music.
Go ahead.
Isn't it beautiful? My favorite ongoing bit is to just tell people, hey, check out music. It rocks. Because honestly, it's kind of sincere. I don't really dislike almost like any genre of music. It's like incredible to me every time that we've managed to arrange sounds in such a way to transport us. So yeah, listen to your favorite song on repeat. It's okay. I don't give a shit about my other stuff. My head's not here, clearly.
That's all right. Links to all Reese's stuff, as always, are in the show notes. So
Links to music in the show notes, everybody.
I put all the music in the show notes. So the last track we have is just going back to Mario Party 2. It's just the credits theme, again composed by Hironao, Yamamoto, Shohei, Bando, and Kazuhiko Sawaguchi. Thank you again for joining us, Alex, and thank you, Reese, as always.
Absolutely. Did we plug the Discord? Did we tell everybody to come on the show?
Oh yeah,
we should.
Do you know what? No, I'm also too tired for that. Again, check the show notes for all our
links.
I
just want to let everybody know, that you too can come on the podcast and regale us and with your favorite soundtrack, and we might even be feeling better.
Hopefully. Just try and carry us through a podcast.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Later, guys.